In this episode, we discuss the different types of gyms and what to expect. Welcome to the Neat Athlete Podcast, a podcast discussing healthy habits, lifestyle design, and all the controversial fitness thoughts we have. Let's do this. What's up, Mike?
What's up? So I was going to say, this kind of scratches that itch a little bit of doing like communication and those kind of things that I did with my master's that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing podcasts, this kind of feels like that, I would say.
That's good. Because it practices for everything that you were talking about, like talking to people on stage or anything like that, right?
Right. So, okay, we have a couple things we want to talk about. And the way we figured it out was we're going to talk about the types of gyms, and then
you said gym memberships too, right?
Gym memberships, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So kind of like talking about all sorts of gyms, and then the second thing was changing your training throughout the seasons. Yeah. So we have both of those things we're gonna try and get through today.
Okay. So real quick, this is gonna sound like because we don't edit things, it's useful to say this. Also, because we don't edit things that much, are we on like switch screen right now, or are we on the double screen thing right now?
We're on the double screen, and I've really been debating on the double screen or the single screen, and I don't know. Well, I don't know what you like. Maybe
so if you're listening and you have an opinion, let us know, basically, because I can't decide either. So we need somebody to make the decision, but I think we're on the double screen right now.
We are on the double screen right now. Yep.
Okay. So disclaimer about talking about gyms. We're gonna try and talk about their strengths and weaknesses today, right?
We are, and throughout the different gyms in our local area, right?
Right. We're gonna talk about some local gyms. Yeah.
Yep.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, cool. So we have worked at a lot of these gyms, so we're not going to talk about like any people or like anything like that. We're not going to try and do anything like that. All gyms have strengths and weaknesses.
And basically, if you live in the northern VA up to Western Virginia,
Western Loudoun, and
Western Loudoun,
right to the West Virginia border, like right across the border.
Route 9, Western Loudoun to Route 9. Mainly to help. What are we trying to help with? Basically, we're trying to help people figure out like what's a good fit for them, basically, right? And how to look for the things that fit well with them.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people go to gyms and they don't know what they're looking for. And this is people who have never been to a gym, because there's a lot of people who they'll go to the doctors when they're 40 and their doctor will be like, all right, go to the gym. Like, you need to go to the gym. That'll be the first time they've like almost ever gone, and they really have no idea what to look for. So I think we're just going to go through each gym, talk a little bit about like what they have in the gym, what kind of person that gym is for, at least in our opinion.
Like gym types, we might talk about them in like gym categories too.
I like it.
There's some gym categories that I'm sure are out there, but I don't really know the name of.
Right.
I would say.
So we're just gonna make the gym categories up today.
Yeah, basically. But what's like the first one? The first one you think we kind of think of is one we were talking about recently, which kind of spurred this conversation.
Okay.
I would say. And that's like gyms that are for like people who are hardcore, like bodybuilders and things of that nature. Right.
Yeah.
So there's like from what I hear, that's gyms like what's the one in Ashburn over near Red Rum Drive? What's that one called?
Like the shop?
The shop.
Yep. Right. Like on that little gym. And out in West Virginia, there's that gym, True Performance Fitness.
Right.
Where they lean towards bodybuilding. Now, here's a funny question though. Like, if you've never been into a gym though, wouldn't you hear Gold's Gym and think hardcore bodybuilding?
I think so, but I think Gold's Gym has recently gone more towards like the family demographic. I would say like a lot more of them are when they get newer ones are putting in like play areas for kids and family memberships, and they're getting rid of a lot of the heavier weights, I would say, and they're putting in a lot more machines.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I definitely think that they've gravitated more towards, what do you want to call that type of gym? Just like kind of like your every person gym, your 80% gym, your commercial big box gym, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think most of those fit. I would say
And
commercial big box, like 80% general population gym.
I like general population. Yeah.
Yeah. Gen Pop for short, as the trainers, as we say in the biz.
Yep. Yep.
Um, feel that feels pompous. Uh, Gen Pop, but general population, I would say, yeah, those kind of gyms like a Gold's Gym, like a One Life Gym,
One Life, LA Fitness.
LA Fitness, yeah. LA Fitness is a little bit more on the discount side a lot of times,
So you
I
think
would say.
like would that so you're going discount as in LA Fitness and like Planet Fitness?
Yeah, they're close. LA Fitness is somewhere in between like the Gen Pop family, and then you gotta get like yeah, like you get a monetary categorization, I guess, with like Planet Fitness, and then like a little bit more expensive than Planet Fitness is LA Fitness.
Because they have kids club and they sometimes, you'll find
Mhm.
an LA Fitness that has like racquetball and stuff like that.
Right. So Gen Pop kind of gets there's a couple of different Gen Pop categories within themselves, I
Yeah.
would say. And then there's like sports performance places, I would
Right.
say,
Right.
right? Those are more likely to be private gyms, right?
What's an example of that? I'm trying to think off the top of my head what an
Yeah.
example of that would
Oh,
be.
gosh, I they used to have like a Velocity Sports Performance gym in Ashburn.
Right. Right.
Um, the One Life Fitness has explosive performance.
Right.
Sport and Health is a little bit more performance. Like but One Life and Sport and Health are owned by the same company, I believe.
Okay. Yes,
Um,
they are. They're owned by US Fitness Holdings.
US Fitness Holdings. There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but Sport and Health, I think, is one of the more sports performance categories of US Fitness Holdings,
Right. Right.
basically.
Right.
Yeah. So what do we got? So we got general population, and then that's kind of split into like discount and sports performance and like family friendly.
How about boot camp oriented gyms like
Mm-hmm.
Orange Theory Fitness?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Boot camp kind of gyms, high intensity interval training
yep,
type gyms,
right. So we'd
or
have
just
Orange Theory, and there was another one called like Boot Camp Fit, I think, is in Ashburn. Do you know
There's
that
a lot
one?
of ones that kind of copied Orange Theory, or Orange Theory might have even copied another one, but they just got on the map a little bit more that are very like heart rate, cardio mixed in with strength training based, I
Yes,
would say.
yes, but very high. It's usually always hit training.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah. It's usually some kind of high intensity, I
right,
would say. High intensity interval training. Yeah, HIIT.
yes.
Yes. A lot of people like that. What else? We're gonna kind of list the categories and then we'll kind of go through the strengths and weaknesses. I feel
There's
like
some the higher end gyms like
more like luxury gyms, more amenities.
yep, like
Yeah.
Equinox, which I've never been in one of those. And that's I
Oh, they're
think
pretty nice. They're pretty
okay, okay,
nice.
okay.
Yeah.
And what's the one in Ashburn that's across from 1757 golf course? It's a really big gym. Um, okay, we can't think of that, but then on the other side,
Lifetime?
Lifetime, yes,
Lifetime. Yeah.
yeah,
Lifetime's another one. And those ones have, yeah, like a lot of amenities. They have like saunas, steam rooms, massage on site. They'll have like a cafe,
right, right, or like a smoothie shop or something like.
yeah, or smoothie shop or something like that. They'll have like merchandise you can buy, and multiple floors and a pool.
Right. So it could be everything for anybody. It could be at some of these places, and it's usually just a little bit nicer, like maybe a towel service or something like that.
Right, yeah, usually like a towel serve, lots of amenities, large, so it can like have all those different, like it kind of like the everything options.
Right.
You pay
Right.
for all the options in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Group classes, they have group classes.
Right. Right. Right.
Yep.
Okay. I think that are there any other categories? I mean,
The only
there's
other category I can think of, and I think it's actually a really useful one, and I often forget about it too. And I think a lot of other people do, is like local recreation centers, YMCA's, those kind of things.
yeah, I can't believe I because in Ashburn has the sports pavilion,
Right,
which I pretty much grew up going there all the time, playing basketball and lifting and whatnot. So I mean,
right.
that's definitely a cool little gym they have there.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work out at recreation centers a ton when I was younger.
Right,
Honestly,
right.
yeah, like those are my favorite places when I was younger. And
Absolutely.
they're almost like luxury places on a budget, but everything's not really like as nice. It's more like built to last versus like built to look good, if
True,
that makes sense.
true. I like that. I like that.
But they tend to have group classes, but they tend to be taught by like younger instructors. Um,
Right, right.
they have pools.
Like the pool membership. It's like a little bit more social, maybe, would you say?
Well, yeah, there's like little kids jumping in the pool, and they got pool programs going all the time, and all that kind of stuff. Versus like, oh, this is my lap pool where I'm gonna put my specialty iPhone headphones on and go do a couple laps at Equinox for my time trials that I'm
Right.
training for in the cold of January. Like that's the kind of people who show up at Equinox, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Hmm. In my all black,
All black.
all black. You gotta have like all black if you're working at Equinox, and like your eyebrows and everything has to be like well lined up. Not everybody, but I was amazed by how put together everybody was at the gym when I
Yeah,
went.
yeah.
Say it that way.
Okay. All
No
right. So
pressure.
no pressure, no pressure. Okay, so those are the main gyms. Off the top of my head, I can think of just a couple more. Like we didn't really go through like yoga studios or anything like that, but we're gonna stick to like kind
Yeah,
of like
like weightlifting gyms. Oh, and then there's okay, last one I think. I think
okay.
last one. And we kind of touched on it, but just like private studios that aren't hit training, just like private gyms,
Right,
for
right.
example, which a lot of our friends have started up or tried to start up, basically.
Yeah, just small studios with pretty minimal equipment and
Mm-hmm.
yep, yep. Okay. And which
Yep.
those can be just as good. Like what a lot of people don't realize, or what I had an interesting conversation with the owner of a gym recently,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about how important it is to have good equipment in your gym,
Mm-hmm.
and also kind of like shiny pieces that people like. And what I mean by that is like his specific example was a pendulum squat. Like you can get information about like gyms in the area and be like there's none of this equipment within 200 miles, and that's actually an attractor for gyms.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I wonder, like, I get that, but those pieces are expensive. Like, are you
Right,
getting a return on your investment with that piece and like the floor space
it's
that it's
interesting.
taking up, you
Right,
know?
right, right,
Or are you justifying that expensive cost that you just had? Like, this is the guy who owns the piece, right?
right, right.
That's
Yeah.
my that's my biggest critique, I would say, of that. But it's possible, yeah, because that makes sense. Because like I know people, and that's going to be catering to like the more hardcore a little bit, like ones who like, oh, this machine is the one for me, like this fits me right and I love doing this machine. And like once I find this gym, like I'll keep my membership, for years because they have that machine,
Right,
maybe,
but
and there's got to be multiple people like that to make that cost effective, I would say.
now, as a coach, though, wouldn't you say that having a small studio with like dumbbells and like a main small equipment, dumbbells, TRX, barbells, I'm just looking at my like small gym, like some bands, stuff like that. You as a coach can do just as much with all those like small pieces of equipment than that $10,000 piece of equipment at a gym, right?
Right, right. And then it's like a numbers game. Like then if you're going to be like a coaching type gym, are you going to be a coaching type gym? You know, where there's a lot of like that's which is more of a private gym where you don't have to pay as much for the equipment, but you got to pay more for the coaching, you know,
Right, right. But
versus like a large gym with lots of equipment and they're just trying. So that makes sense for that model, you know, because you're trying to pull in those people to get in for that equipment and you're just trying to have a lot of people come through because they're paying a lot less than they would for like a private gym where you're getting the coaching
so
and you're
we're
kind of
trying.
hoping that the machines do the technique work in a way for the people.
And so we're trying right now to let people know like what gym is the best. So having
Yeah.
this conversation, I think people need to think about little things like this, like what do they really want? And I think that's the very first thing that we need to think about before we have this conversation. So like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
what is the first person we're talking about? How about the newbie gym goer? You want to do them?
Sure. Okay. So newbie gym goer.
All right, so they
How
are,
old? How old?
let's just say they're like, we had this conversation I think before the camera turned on. Let's just say
Mm,
they're between 40 and 60 years old,
okay.
and they just went to the doctor for the first time since they were 14 years old. And
Right.
then the doctor says, because how many clients are like this, right? And the doctor says you need to probably get a personal trainer right now, like, or like you need to start exercising immediately, and this person has never exercised before.
Right.
All right, so that's who we're talking about right now.
Okay. So, I really like recreation centers.
Okay,
Um,
because they're inviting.
they're very inviting. Yeah. And the only reason I may not say a recreation center is if you don't like to be around a lot of people, you know, like you want to have like some space to yourself,
Right,
basically.
right.
So almost like extroverts, introverts, a little bit of a difference there.
Okay, okay,
But recreation centers good for the more extroverted, I would say, because
okay,
of how inviting they are. For the introverts, I would say maybe like a private studio, a little
okay.
bit more like a private coaching place.
Yeah.
Um, let's see.
I mean, so for the brand new person, they would normally probably go like maybe look at price. So you're thinking like
Right.
probably the commercial gyms like Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym or One Life or
Mhm.
something like that, right?
Now, yeah, and then budget wise, in the middle, and that's I think that's why these gyms make the most money overall. I don't know if they make the most profit overall,
Right.
but they make a good amount of money, or they're where a lot of people end up going is because they kind of have that mix,
Yeah.
basically, where if say you don't want to go when there's a lot of people, you just try to go if you have enough control over your schedule, you try to go at the times when there's not a lot of people, basically
Right.
during the day, like instead of before work and after work, basically, and maybe a little bit of a lunch crew.
Right.
But anytime in between before work and after work is pretty solid at most gyms,
Right.
basically.
Right. It's pretty tough to get pretty tough to get on machines in a lot of gyms on those times.
Before work and after work, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's like what's the point at that point, you know?
For a lot of
You
people who
can't
need to
use a
work
lot of
out.
the equipment and a lot of people end up just keeping that membership for the contract amount of time or coming in every once in a while, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you do got to kind of stumble through a little bit, you know, and
Yeah.
stumbling through on less money makes sense to a point, and I think it depends on like you got to feel like. Have you heard of that book, Skin in the Game?
No.
Um, it's all about how people get motivated by having a little bit of a I don't want to like repeat the title, but they have a bit of an investment. It feels like an investment that they've made,
Right.
basically. You
Right.
know? So if it's too little money, like the Planet Fitness places, a lot of times they don't feel like it's as much of an investment. And that's kind of relative to the person's budget, I would
Sure.
say. And
Okay.
no one's going to agree with this at the actual time of doing it. Everybody has their own like justifications
Right.
for why
Right.
it's not just budget, why they actually really like the place, you
Right.
know?
Right. Right. But that's true. $10, a lot of people won't go to the gym if they're only paying $10 a month.
Right. Right.
Right.
Exactly. And that's kind of built into the business model of those gyms. I would
Okay.
say as well. And I don't mean it in like a nefarious way, but that's just what happens
Right.
at
Right.
those gyms, basically.
Okay. So,
Um,
for the newbie, I would say we would say from that conversation, Planet Fitness would probably be a no unless budget is your only thing.
right,
Because
unless you feel constricted by budget, and in which case Planet Fitness might work really well for you because it's
yeah,
going to be enough skin in the game that you're going to feel like you really want to do it,
right,
you know?
right. And Planet Fitness, it would probably be better on off hours if you don't have to work out between like 8 or like 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and
Right, because
5
they
p.m.
are
and
still going to be
7
pretty
p.m.
packed
Okay.
pre and
Okay.
post. Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Mm-hmm. But then if you got a little bit more budget and you got control of your time, you could get some more amenities, for example, at like the One Lives and the Gold Gyms, and maybe a little bit more amenities at the what was it?
Like
The LA
Lifetime
Fitness.
Fitness. Lifetime Fitness.
Oh, well, that's like the top amenities,
Yeah.
basically.
LA Fitness would be so LA Fitness would be a little bit lower than the One Life or Golds, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, but for newbies, like for because all I think what we're missing is that all these gyms are everywhere. So like that's why I think most people gravitate towards Golds and One Life because it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be in your town probably, right? And same
Yeah,
with
it's familiar.
Planet Fitness. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Right. So but as
Now, some private gyms, um, and like those hit places
yeah,
can be good, if they have like a beginner program, I
right.
would say.
Right.
But a lot of them don't. The private gyms do. The high intensity places, not so much, I would
Right.
say.
Right.
And you got to kind of be careful at the high intensity places because if you're a beginner, it's going. You're gonna have like that group. Even if you're gonna have that group social kind of
Pressure.
push and pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
to push a little bit harder. And that's good when you're not a beginner, basically. When it
Yeah.
hasn't been a while since you worked out. It doesn't even have to be a beginner if it's just been a while since you worked out,
Very
you
true.
know?
That
Um,
competition can definitely affect what you do in the
right.
gym.
That's when people get hurt all the time,
Yeah.
basically. When it's been a while and then they try and do something in a group setting and they push a little harder than they should have. That's how I
Right.
hurt my Achilles, actually.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, every lifting injury I've ever had is probably like that. So
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
yeah.
The social pressure, right?
Yeah.
So that's something to be aware of, I would say. So that's like the beginners. So what would be the intermediate, would you
You
say?
I would say people who at least know how to do an exercise and like to safely go to equipment. All right, would be like the second set of people we're talking about.
They worked out consistently recently at least.
Or at least some at some point they know what to do at to some extent, right?
They know if they haven't worked out in a while, how they can work out in a safe way and work their way back up,
Yes, I love it.
right?
Yep. And okay, so I think this is good. So if just a little bit, like if you have background in a certain type of training, then
Mm-hmm.
really I would say you could restart your program like in that type of gym. So like if you used to bodybuild like say in the 80s and you're just getting back in after 20 years, then you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
love to go to a bodybuilding gym or something like that.
Right.
Have you been to the ones in Ashburn, like the shop or anything like that?
No, but I've been to there was one in Ashburn that they were doing for a while, and I forget the name of it because it was kind of in transition. I don't think they had figured out a name at the time,
Okay.
but it was over in that area, and I think I know a lot of the people who are working at the shop right now,
Okay.
and who were training at that gym.
Now, how
And
do you feel when you go walk into one of those gyms? Do you feel like I like this term, the 20% gym. The 20% gym
Mhm.
is like are the people who are already working now like for a specific goal like bodybuilding or a sport or strongman
Right,
or something like that.
right. So less Gen Pop, more like the workout is for a performance in
For
some way.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
and some the most popular performance in the gym is bodybuilding, I would say. Maybe second to athletics.
Yeah, yeah, I would say maybe
It's pretty
athletics.
close though. It's pretty like 50-50, right? Like bodybuilding gyms versus athletic performance gyms,
Like
right?
when it comes to power, like powerlifting or strongman or like that type of stuff compared to bodybuilding, I would say there's more bodybuilding even at those types of gyms.
Oh, I mean like kind of like explosive performance does,
Right, right.
and velocity sports and all that kind of stuff does.
Okay, so just training towards more athletic training than bodybuilding style training.
Right, right, exactly. But following a program, that's probably a big indicator, right? Of
Yeah.
intermediate status, right? If
Oh
you
yeah,
if
if
you
someone
followed a
follows a
program
program.
in the past, and you've
Yeah,
gone through and done like everything according to the program, the sets, and you know what like sets and reps are, and
right.
those kind of things.
Yeah.
That
But
would be what kind of gyms would that be? Those would be that bodybuilding gym, right?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying. Like I would think that they could go to any gym from their past or the bodybuilding. The like so if they liked bodybuilding, then go there. If they liked I think that stuff like One Life and Gold's Gym could all fit that category as well.
Right, and they kind
And
of overlap there.
yeah, I think once you're in intermediate, it really
Hmm.
depends on more things like behavior and like what you like about the social aspect of the gym.
Hmm.
Because you know that if you can go anywhere and get dumbbells and get a workout in, right? But you really need to be specific on your needs, in my opinion.
Right, right, and then it comes down to, I guess we're going back to budget a little bit, right?
Right, right. That's another thing.
And then you could be beginner. We did leave out the beginner with like the higher end, like the lifetime fitness, because that's more family friendly, but a little bit more expensive, basically.
True.
And those are really nice, I would say,
Absolutely.
if you got the budget for it. And like the Equinox, for example,
And
right?
I think those could be all categories, probably beginner, intermediate, or well,
Advanced.
advanced, but maybe not if you're like an advanced bodybuilder. But I'm sure some of those gyms have like bodybuilder specific things,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
I mean, those high end gyms, pretty much anybody can go to those as long as you have the
Right.
budget, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of how it goes. So like the high end ones have a lot more options,
Yeah,
basically. And that's what you pay for the most part.
sure.
You pay for the options when it comes down to it. And then the ones in the middle, they overlap a little bit, but they're a little bit more budget friendly,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And then the ones at the bottom, they're really budget friendly, but they don't have a lot of amenities.
right, right. And so as an intermediate lifter, so that you just really have to be specific to your needs. And I
Mhm.
think and I think as we go to the advanced lifter and talk about that, it's going to have to be even more specific because
Yeah, and that's where it goes more towards the like I want that one piece of equipment and I want to work on that one piece of equipment, or I want this one kind of instructor, you know,
yeah,
or
right.
I want to learn how to use this piece of equipment. Like there's barbell gyms, there's kettlebell gyms.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So okay, this is a fun game that I think so we pretty much have we gone over
I think so.
the
I think so.
basics. So can we get like what three questions
Hmm.
can we ask our should we ask ourselves when we're going to look for a gym? Like, should we ask ourselves three specific questions?
Okay. All right.
So,
So we kind of figured out one was budget, right?
what's our budget?
Right.
Boom.
What's our what's our abilities?
Where do we
Ability.
where where do we want our abilities to go?
Where do we want our abilities to go? What's our goal for ourselves, right?
Okay.
What's our goal for ourselves?
What's our goal for ourselves? And then what are maybe something like what are my specific needs?
Hmm. Yeah, what are my specific needs? That's
Because
kind of goes with the abilities a little bit. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I like I won't pay for a gym if it doesn't have a sauna in it. Like
Oh yeah, okay.
Like I don't want to pay for a
What's
gym
the point? Because you've got all the rest of the stuff at home,
at
right?
home. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Like so
That
so
makes
that's a
sense.
specific need for me.
Right, right.
Right. And so I think that that would be a good third question to ask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say that again. So, budget.
What is your budget?
Mm-hmm. What do
What
you want to do? What do you
what are your
want?
goals?
Yeah.
Yep. And then what are your specific needs? Like, do you want a sauna? Do you want free weights? Do you want classes? Things like that.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And
I
I
feel
think
like
that,
if someone has listened to all this and this actually sounds interesting to them, and they still can't figure it out, message us because I feel like we could point you in the right direction if you gave us those three things, right?
yeah, I 100%. I've thought about this before. I mean, you really need to think about your gym before you go. And I mean, gyms
I
offer
think a
free.
lot of people. I think a lot of people do. I think. Do you ever do sales for membership or sit in with sales for membership?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
Man, they're like all over the place with their questions and decisions and
And
all that
how
kind of stuff.
many free 3-day trials they've tried at every gym in the county,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think people shop around a lot and think about it a lot, almost too much.
I think people no, I think people shop around without
Hmm.
specific questions in mind
And
and
without the right questions in mind. Yeah.
and so they don't really know how to determine what their real needs are. They just
Hmm.
go there, they see maybe they like it, maybe what's huge?
Well, this
Light,
is what a
things
gym
like
looks is
that.
supposed to look like. I feel like happens a lot, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, 100%. Like
Because
it
they
doesn't
think
it's clean, it doesn't smell, like things like that I think are
right, it has that piece of equipment that I know gyms are supposed to have, you
yeah,
know?
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the 80%. That's the
Yeah,
large majority, at
yeah,
least. You know?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
cool. Hey, all right, we're gonna go to part two of this episode then now. Does that sound good?
All right, what's part two?
All right, part two was the seasons.
Oh, the seasons of fit. Okay.
Or
So
do you have time or do you want to do that now?
well, let's see. Let's see. Let's see. I think I have
Okay.
time. Yeah, it's
Okay.
11 o'clock. Okay. So you posted something on your Instagram
Yes.
recently.
Yes.
And the seasons of fitness on that one was about, I kind of want to pull it up, but about the different times of the year and the different kind of strains or loads on that person at that time of the year, and then what kind of training could be really useful for them at that time of the year.
Yes.
And
Just
I like that.
some pretty generalizations.
Yeah.
But when you're doing long-term fitness, I think like having bigger generalizations are good. And then that's when it comes into like either having a coach or just having self-awareness of when to change those. But yeah, let's talk about these because I do think that having these in mind are like at least a first step in like really controlling your fitness.
Right. Right. And so I like the way you broke it down.
Okay.
So and I don't think Josh completely knew I was going to give Josh didn't know I was going to do this before this talk today.
I did not.
um so the maintain phase, that's your training goal, or your training goal is strength, your training goal is building, or your training goal is fat loss,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
And the way you broke it down was into the sets and reps and the body type of workout you're doing, like a split routine versus a full body routine,
Yep.
right? And then you put the tempo in there too, which I
I
like.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to explain tempo real quick for people?
Absolutely. Tempo is something that I don't think a lot of people manipulate, but is amazing. So, tempo is really simply is how long it takes you to come down in the eccentric phase, and then the next step of the tempo is just your hold, and then the next little like you put a colon in between, and the next one is your concentric up, and then the next one is just at the holding at the top of the rep.
Right. And Josh is kind of doing like a bench press type
Yes.
motion right now,
Yes.
which is like the typical example, I would say, that and the bicep curl, basically.
Right, right.
Right.
It's easiest to show like the eccentric and concentric phases.
Right. So like the lowering and the pushing, or the lowering and the action phase, the lowering, the hold, and the action phase.
I like it. I like it.
Right.
Yep.
Um, and that's really helpful at different stages of the year, times of the year. So that's the next part of it. So then the times of the year determine like what the steps and reps generally could look like if you have the typical traits of that time of year.
Yes, and so I'm explaining this, and it, like I said, it was very generalized or whatever.
Right.
And so like the typical traits was kind of like two or three traits that are normal for that time of the year, but obviously not every year like these are gonna happen.
Right. Right. But like you got like typical like holiday time.
Yeah,
Let's see, back to school time. So like think of it like spring, winter, fall, summer, right?
pretty much. Yeah,
But a little bit more relative to the stresses of that time, like the cold, the heat,
yeah,
the social activities,
I like
whether that be school or holidays, for example, or like summer parties, that kind of thing.
right, right. Kind of
Right,
like what you're doing more of at that time.
right. And then and then you put the nutrition on there too. So like what to focus on nutrition wise. So this time of the year is kind of what I wanted to break down because this is the time of the year that people are working on right now. So it's
Yeah.
like the best thing to do at this time of the year.
Okay. Okay. I like it. And
Um,
what's the tendency of this time of year?
so this time of the year, the tendency is that you got holiday parties, you have more sweets, you have cold weather. So which means the cold weather means you don't want to get outside that much.
I swear I
Right?
wasn't just talking about myself the whole time here.
I know. I really like this though, because I seriously was thinking about something like this, like right before you posted this.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was thinking this would be really, and then I was like, oh, look, Josh just did it for us. But like this is something to kind of save for later, but also to think of to have available when you think of your goals.
Yeah.
So what we were talking about earlier when we're talking about like what are your goals when you're trying to find a good gym, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
Like what time of year is it might be relative to what kind of gym you want to train in, you know? Like if you're starting out and this time of the year, what can
December,
be
January.
happening if you're a beginner starting out at this time of the year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's rough for a lot of people, I feel like.
Yeah. It's cold. You don't want to get out of your house at 6 a.m.
Right. And I think it's still rough even in January, even though like it's fitness season,
Right.
you know?
Because of
'Cause-
cold or because like I just feel like it's a time of year where even though you make all these goals, it's just such a
Mhm.
gloomy and like kind of down time of year that a lot of people just kind of like fall off the goals.
Right. And this is kind of if you're experiencing winter on the East Coast, if we're if,
Yes.
if
Yes,
we're being
that
specific.
yes.
Or winter East Coast, places where winter lasts from what'd you say? November through January, maybe even into February a little bit,
Sure, sure.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think getting outside is a really good. We didn't even talk about home gyms or just like getting outside, by the way, in
Let's
terms of like best things for beginners to do,
let's wrap that up at the end. I think that's a good one.
right? Um, but if you're trying to do either one of those things, the cold makes it harder. The
Yeah.
holiday parties make it harder, I would say. What else makes it harder around this time of the year?
uh well just eating, like when you come to the end of the year, it's like the end, and I think that there's this like feeling that everyone has that it's like a pause. Like
Mhm,
I think everyone takes this pause from like December, like the basically Christmas until New Year's at
mhm.
least.
Or
And then
Thanksgiving till New Year's.
Thanksgiving till New Year's, almost like in work, people are like, it's December, there's no work going on. Like, and
Mhm.
and they just kind of pause their goals because they know in January is a reset. Um,
Right. And they're busy getting things done before the end of the year,
yeah,
before the holidays and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to know that you're going to have basically a harder time, which means your training goal would be better served to have something like lower repetitions, right? So like you put 5x5. It would be good to have like something like upper and lower body split or a full body split,
I mean,
right?
all these things are definitely up in the air, but so the
Mm-hmm.
reason there's two reasons I have that the 5x5. So
Mm-hmm.
you can either be they're usually like a minimalistic workout for me. So I'll just have a one upper, one lower, both 5x5. I can do them fast, whether it's at the gym or at
Mm-hmm.
home. Uh,
Right.
and plus your tendency is to eat a little bit more, and just everyone's kind of moving slower. So I'm not trying to, this is more of a Tao, like a Taoism thing, like trying to go with the flow of the
Then going
season.
against, then trying to do like high intensity interval trainings, burning off all the calories that you were eating.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
I like that though. So embracing it a little bit, but still in a moderate way, basically.
I mean, doing 5x5 training heavy, yeah, I mean, is going to be great when you're eating a ton, you know?
Right. Yeah, you feel real strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might gain a couple lbs or whatever, but I mean, that's what the next
Mm-hmm.
season's for.
Right. Exactly. And the next season, and it kind of, if you start to get into a seasonal approach like this, like there's a lot of benefits to it. And
Yeah.
I think one of the benefits to having a seasonal approach is just that you look forward to the next season a little bit more,
Yeah.
after you've done it for a while, even just a few months, really. And that's part of the reason why it's good to change your program pretty often,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But not too often,
I've
basically.
like rarely done a 3x15, like set the set and rep count. And right now I'm in a 3x15 phase and I cannot wait to get out of this phase.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I'm so
Exactly.
excited. I'm so excited to finish my workouts and start the next workout.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and that kind of comes after you get used to doing that seasonal approach.
Yeah, exactly.
What else? What else about the seasonal approach? Because I feel it's kind of it's kind of nitpicky, but because
Well,
there's a lot of information here, but I feel like it's really useful for people to know that training seasonally can help them.
let's talk about what I just said, like the go with the flow approach or go against the grain approach. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's another thing that people can think about. Like if you're going into the holiday season and
Mm-hmm.
maybe for you running every day is something that you're going to do, like and maybe that's more beneficial for you. Or like I'm not a huge runner or anything like that. I'm not saying it's the best, but whatever's good for you is going to be good for you.
Right.
Like my seasonal things like were my seasonal things, and I think that's and those are also generalized, right? And so in my opinion it all comes down to ultimate customization for you. And with the seasons too, like what I have in that chart is like if you're on the West Coast in LA, then this isn't gonna really matter for you as much, right? So
Right.
let's talk about that maybe. In in a climate where there is no weather change, how would you approach this? I mean, you would have to really focus on just switching your training program.
Yeah, you would have to be more methodical about having reminders maybe to change up your training program,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah,
People who need their training program to change more often are, I would say, people who can work at consistently showing up, basically. So if you're consistently showing up, you need to change your program more often. And if you're having a hard time showing up, you probably don't need to change it as much. Does that
right.
make sense? So
Yeah,
like if you're showing up pretty often, once a month, once every 2 months max.
yeah,
But if you're not showing up very often, then you could probably go for about 3 months, you know, on
right.
something before it might be trying to change it up.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you kind of have to go based on that versus the weather as much. Although there are still commitments like certain times of the year for holidays and certain times of the year for the sun. Like there seems to be a cold, even in those places, there seems to be a cold time of the year and a warm time, a hot or warmer hot time of the year. You know.
True, true. Like more of the year where you're going to the beach and taking your shirt off more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
things like and then there's the holidays, there's back to school. I think those are all like kind of
Yeah, back to school is a big one if you're a parent.
if you're a
Yep.
parent, right? But if you're not a parent, then that September time period really doesn't matter to you except for maybe traffic gets worse, right?
Oh, unless you're in school, like in college or something like that,
Right,
basically.
right. So
Hmm.
those are important.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. And some
I would
people are going to have different times of the year that are more busy for them too. Like maybe you work for a business that is dead during the winter and is super busy in the summertime,
yeah,
so you might have to switch around those training goals basically. Like if you're in an intense time, strength is a pretty good training goal, like low rep strength type work. If you got a lot of commitments
yeah,
and you tend to eat more, and yeah, you don't have as much energy overall, you don't have as much endurance maybe,
right. Now,
right.
but wouldn't most people think the opposite? So we're talking about going with the flow,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is an important thing, man. Going with the flow of life is more important than sometimes matching what you're doing with your training, if that makes sense. Like because you might think hit training is going to be the best if you're
I
eating
know.
a ton
Yeah.
or whatever. But if you're working so much and then you're like, oh, that 20-minute hit session is going to be better than my hour and a half strength session or whatever. And it might be harder on your body, for that 20-minute session. So there's so many weird things about that.
That's a really good point though, and I think like I know we know this, as coaches, and I know a lot of other coaches know this too. And I know this is a battle with a lot of coaches
Yeah.
too, with their clients, and it's not like you're berating your client for trying to push too hard. A lot of times you end up getting stuck like encouraging them almost because they're just so like all about it.
Right. Right.
And in a way that's like their coping mechanism that they've learned to get over the guilt of doing the thing that they feel like they quote unquote shouldn't do, you
Absolutely.
know?
Right. Right.
Um, I've been guilty of that too, I would say.
I think we all have.
Right.
Yeah.
But like we know that we're trying to get them to go with the flow a little bit more,
Yeah.
you know?
Because
And they're just
sticking
trying to throw out like little breadcrumbs sometimes to see if it's like, oh, it's okay, just take it easy, go slower with this movement, change the tempo a little bit. We don't have to get all those reps. We don't need to. We're working on technique here. We're
yeah.
working on
Working
yeah.
on just sticking with your routine. Like
Mhm.
how important is that just to go to the gym or go down to your home gym or do your push-ups in your living room like every day? Like that is more important than allowing these other things to affect it. And so
Right.
if you know it's going to be a crazy time of the year, oftentimes thinking about your time spent or like where you're going to work out, those are more important than thinking about like what you're going to be working out in. So, I mean,
Mhm, mhm,
just think if you're only going to have 20 minutes, like you said, the busy season, right?
mhm.
So maybe your most important thing for that busy season is time.
Right.
Maybe your biggest value of that busy season is that you are on your feet for 14 hours that day and you're not going to be able to do a lot of leg stuff, like a lot of
Mhm, mhm,
leg strength
mhm.
training or something like that. And so you
Right.
have to determine those values.
Right.
Hey man, I know you have to run soon. Do we want to wrap up with that what you were saying earlier about the home like the home gyms? Because I think the home
Mm.
or do you have a second to talk about that?
Yes. Let's wrap up with that. We'll wrap up with that.
So let's go back to the three
Hang up with
different
this.
there's three different people, beginners,
Mhm, mhm. Intermediate, advanced.
intermediate and advanced, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so
mhm.
why would who is the home gym best for and why?
Let's see. I would say the home gym is best for beginner and intermediate. Um, I think advanced, you can make it work, but it's not ideal. Like you gotta have some abnormal resources, I would say, to make it work at home,
Yes.
basically, to be advanced and work out at home. But like a private gym, that's probably a really good place to go if you're advanced.
Yeah.
So we kind of work backwards from advanced to beginner with the home gym and the private studio. So advanced, I would say private studio, depending on what you're trying to do. If that private studio focuses on that, those are
Yeah.
going to be your best places,
Yep.
because you're not going to have a bunch. You don't really want all the amenities, basically, if
Right.
that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
I like that. Let's see. Intermediate people can still go to those private studios, but like we said earlier, you have to have that beginner program,
Yeah.
available for them.
Right.
And this is more like a gym owned by a strength coach type of private studio.
Yeah.
Some high intensity places do that. They have like their high intensity and their private studio all in one.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and that's owned by like coaches. But that's kind of rare, honestly.
I actually love that because if you
Yeah,
like a great workout program, like just spitballing real quick, is like 2 days with your coach and then 2 days in hit is like,
right.
or one day in hit is awesome. And if you had a gym like that, it would work out really good.
Shout out to my friend Adam in Colorado at Hitbox Brighton, I think. He does that. He does
Oh,
that, and I really like that a lot.
yeah, that's
I think
awesome.
that's
Awesome.
yeah. So like that's a great place for intermediate, because you still have that option basically,
Yeah.
but you also have that beginner kind of home, like private gym, like full gym with coaches and a lot of help around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's less common, I would say. But if you find that, that's awesome,
Absolutely.
basically. And
Yeah.
then home gym, for the intermediate is really good. I think intermediate home gym is like one of the best options,
That's
I
what
would
I
say,
say.
for the intermediate lifter. And that why is that? I would say it's because for the intermediate lifter, you don't usually need a lot of equipment. You just need to do the right things often, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
if you're intermediate, you have a good idea of what that is, and then doing it often. The easiest way to do it often is to have it at home,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yep.
And for the beginner, the home gym can be really useful. The only thing I would say about the beginner in a home gym is that if you don't have enough space at home, or you're getting interrupted a lot at home,
Yeah. Or
the home
exercise form.
right, or exercise form needs to be looked at. Yep. I like the home gym for the beginner the most. This is gonna sound like a plug, but if you have a like
A
a like a
coach.
coach, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Like
that's true though. That's
showing you a
true.
couple things to do at home. Like that's part of the reason why